Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about, when people obsess over pointless details such as, squeezing a muscle a certain way at the top. They will focus upon a pinky angle, a twist of the wrist a certain way on an exercise where it has no meaningful contribution. In other words, yes, your pinky twist and range of motion might matter if you're doing an Arnold press with dumbbells because it's massively changing the angles and functions at which the muscle is loaded. And something like that, it makes sense if someone really were trying to get a certain type of complete delt development. Okay, that makes sense, right? It absolutely makes sense that they might do something like that. For those who don't know an Arnold press, that's where you take dumbbells and you're seated or standing, and you start with your palms facing your chest all the way at the bottom for a stretch, and as you go up, you turn and rotate out so that your palms are facing forward at the top. It's a classic bodybuilder exercise. It's probably 40, 50 years old, and you started seeing people do it. Named after Arnold Schwarzenegger. They call it an Arnold press. Okay, that makes sense. But when people start worrying about little stuff like this on flies and dumbbell presses, one arm rows, I mean, my God, people, these things don't matter. Muscles don't care about these small twists and squeezes, particularly squeezes, right? They don't care about that because if you're doing that at the expense of additional load, you have a problem. Because what muscles respond to is mechanical tension. They respond to how much tension is being loaded against the muscle. They respond to like a stretch overload. Okay? So if we are degrading performance chasing these little small things, this is not beneficial to you. You're not going to gain any muscle from it. It's not going to develop anything. It's just wasting your time and focus. When what you should be focused upon is improving your overall performance and the weights and the reps that you were able to perform through long ranges of motion. So when I come to that point, I want to be clear that those things do matter. Range of motion of a joint absolutely matters. Why? Because it impacts the tension on the muscle. There's a lot of muscles that they get far more tension placed on them at the angles where they are put into a deep stretch. Okay, there's plenty of data on this. We understand it. It's about a stretch overload. It's about lengthened position movements. For those not understanding, on a squat or a leg press, the very bottom, stretching it to as far as you can to where you get the deepest angle of knee bend. Okay, that puts a deeper stretch. That creates more mechanical tension even with the same weight. So when I discuss mechanical tension, I don't mean mechanical tension in the sense that it's always just increasing weight through any means necessary. It's saying, hey, even with the same weight, if I take sometimes a joint into a deeper stretch, right, because that muscle is put into a more elongated spot to where it's stretched further, that can increase tension. So a perfect example, any sort of squatting pattern movement, whether it's a barbell squat or a leg press or a lunge, the deeper you get your knee angle bent, the more tension is placed on the quad. All right, a chest press or a chest fly, it doesn't have to be. It could be a barbell, it could be a dumbbell. I'm not going to say machine because machines usually have a limited range of motion, so they're actually not that good in my opinion. But, again, just my opinion. And it's going to vary from machine to machine and from person to person depending upon the stretch that you can personally get. Right? The deeper your hand angle goes, right? In other words, the deeper you sink it, the more tension is being placed upon the pectoral. Just look at the angles involved. Look at the biomechanics. There's greater tension placed on the pectoral. Well, that's what we're talking about with tension. Tension increases for a lot of muscles in a deeper stretch with the same weight. But it can also be, of course, adding weight. If you're keeping the range of motion constant and you're adding weight, that's doing the same thing as well. We could argue about which one is better, and I think in most cases you definitely want a significant amount of your training to be into fully stretched positions. This is a good idea. this is what we know about the body and how it responds. I'm not saying everything has to go into those positions, but loading matters. Okay, loading matters. And again, when I'm talking about loading, I don't mean because you're cheating more weight up or you're gaming a lift in some way to add weight. I mean because you're maintaining the same form, the same ranges of motion, and you add weight over time. Right? This is what matters because again, increased tension on a muscle. Tension also increases on individual muscle fibers if you can do more work. Okay, there's a big one. That's increasing tension because you're fatiguing other muscle fibers and therefore more tension has to be placed on individual fibers as others fatigue. So if you can do 100 pounds for 10 reps, but you're able to take it up to 11, 12, 13, 14, eventually 15, that is an increase in tension. It's not just we're thinking progressive overload, we're thinking of progressive tension. And that's that tension placed on individual muscle fibers because as fibers fatigue, other ones have to take over. And so that is a positive adaptation. Right? These are the things that we are seeking. Those are what matter. That is what impacts your results from the lifting. Okay? Minor silly things like fiber angle alignments, which I've debunked that before of why that can be in many cases complete nonsense. Completely pseudoscientific nonsense that defies human biomechanics. We don't even need to go over to controlled studies. It's simply nonsense from a biomechanical perspective oftentimes. Stuff like that doesn't matter. Twisting your pinky a certain way. It's like, no, I mean, it's one thing if you're able to increase a range of motion on a muscle, right? Okay, that matters. But if it's not doing that, it's worth nothing. It's worth absolutely nothing. And if anything, it can be a net negative because you're now putting energy and thinking and wasting efforts on that instead of putting effort into making the muscle actually do more work. Okay? Because again, that is the point. That's one of the things with the deep stretches. It makes a muscle do more work even with the same weight, in some cases less weight. Right? Making muscles do hard work. That is what they respond to. And it has to be progressive and it has to be systematic. Right? It has to be applied repeatedly over time. And I think that's the biggest important thing too that people have to understand. It is about doing this over time with consistency. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.